Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Now it's even.
The balance of power is shifting.
Nothing else. You got snuggled up tonight, huh? It is cold out there.
No, it's like in church where nobody wants to sit within his 4 house.
It's supposed to be like 11 degrees in the morning.
Seven.
What we do is we went to the girl
No, it's too early. It's never this cold.
That's right, yes.
but they say it's gonna be
Well, let's hope so. It's definitely an early winter.
the farmer's almanac.
God.
Cold winters are good for future hurricanes.
His bees.
The Gulf Stream doesn't heat up.
I mean,
Yeah. Really
cold
cold
itself.
winter. Not necessarily a snowy winter, but it's cold.
We need disease free, but I can't count.
Doesn't it go?
You know, if they
Huh?
stay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Good point.
They discovered a 5-foot Komodo dragon in their
They
water.
go first, and we go right after.
Find a way to get it in the attic. Nothing they're adding.
Oh,
So that's unbelievable.
That's not a
Yes.
And so the good news about those, they can outrun a person.
Sure.
and you know, the way they run, you wouldn't think it's not straightforward. It's like an alligator.
Yeah.
Well, they call them
That's
land.
what they could describe at the time.
But anyway, the good thing is that you see the mice and.
I just hope that person's on the phone.
Yeah, Lawrence.
I thought they were somehow confined to islands off the coast of Indonesia.
Well, the big Komodo dragons, these are technically Komodo, but they're, they call them land alligators, so sorry, is this reptile family. Hello.
Well, you need to find a reptile. Go to Australia if you want the most poisonous snakes in the
Yeah,
world.
they found,
Spiders,
they had a western.
Spiders, so.
They had a western brown snake, which is deep with carpet. They've done a lot of power washing and other stuff, so I think it's found another home. Well, here we are. Here we are. Frozen chosen. A remnant. Okay, I'm glad you're here. And I trust the Lord will, whether it's you or many, the Lord will be with us and use this time in a meaningful way for us.
Can you say 2 or more?
There we go. We made it. So let's continue. Father John, would you like to open us with a word of prayer?
Sure. Lord Jesus, we thank you for this gathering this evening, the opportunity to study and immerse ourselves in your word. For you are the word made flesh, reside in our hearts and in our minds. Transform us and turn us to good as we continue on our journey toward your kingdom, your cross, your crown, the new heaven and the new earth. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
Maybe so. Good. I wasn't 100% sure exactly where we left off last week. I keep forgetting to bring the writing utensil to start here, but I got one tonight, so
I think we're in 22. I think we read 22 last week, 1 through 6, or 1 through
right.
where Judas consented to.
That's what I got. So anyway, I'd like to start at 3 though, again, just pick up 22:3. The phrase, then Satan entered Judas, called Iscariot, one of the 12. We'll pick that up again later in this chapter. It's an amazing story why Jesus picked someone who he knew would betray him and all that went with it. And as we'll see later on in this chapter, we're going to see the contrast. I won't go into detail, but the structure is interesting in this section. On the one hand, you see Judas seeking to betray this Lord, in contrast to Peter, who's warned that he's going to fall and does, in between, you have the disciples jockeying for power and position, and Jesus talking about what real servanthood is all about. Several different concepts.
Dysfunctional family.
Yeah, kind of minor. But anyway, so let's jump in. And then in the middle here, we have what's called the Last Supper. We use the term communion, it's also called the Last Supper, communion, and the Lord's table. And each of those are used to refer to the same sacrament, and each one has a special sort of nuance to it, doesn't it? So when we say the Last Supper, what does that imply?
And the Last Supper before death.
When we used to, when we talk about supper, we're looking at a meal. And then when we're talking about communion, what does that sort of convey?
Unity.
Same Last Supper.
Yeah, it's all referring to the sacrament, but when we say we're having communion, what does that imply? The word communion, what does that normally mean? Together. Yeah, and then when we say the Lord's table, what does that convey? Well, who's
Sacrificial.
Belonging before the Lord's table.
It's his table, the Lord's table. It's his place that he invites us to. He's in charge, if we can put it that way. All right, so let's walk our way through this wonderful passage. And we'll pick it up in verse. Verse
22.
No, let's go on to 7. I'll come back to, we talked about how the arrangements that Jesus made with the temple priests to betray Jesus.
Okay, I'll tell you.
And so verse 7, let's go on down to verse 18, 7 to 18.
Okay, 7 to 18, or 3 to 7.
No, well, let's do 7 to 13.
Okay. Then came the day of the unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and make preparations for us to eat the Passover." "Where do you want us to prepare for it?" they asked. He replied, "As you enter the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him to the house that he enters, and say to the owner of the house, 'The teacher asked, where is the guest room? Where may I eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large upper room, all furnished. Make preparations there." They left and found things just as Jesus had told them. So they prepared the Passover.
Okay. So we read, then came the day of unleavened bread. What does that refer to? Unleavened bread. The day of unleavened bread.
To the Passover.
So, right, it refers back to the Exodus, of course, and the deliverance from Egypt. But Passover was one specific day, and they added. Sorry, too noisy. I think he's forgotten here. Sorry for that. So they added on another week, so altogether it was an 8-day event, quite a celebration. So you can imagine hundreds of thousands of people squished into Jerusalem and then spilling out into the suburbs because there was the firm accommodations. Can you imagine the number of animals being slaughtered?
Anymore.
And what do you do with all that? You know, pretty gruesome scene at one thing. And so it says, on the day of the unleavened bread on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed, Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and make preparations for us to eat the Passover." To be honest, scholars hassle the debate over what day this actually was. Was it Thursday? Was Passover being Friday? Or was it so that it was the evening and then he was crucified on Friday with the Thursday? Or was this meal the noonday meal on Thursday before the actual Passover started? They go back and forth trying to figure out exactly the time frame of this. But nevertheless, we know the overall sequence, whether it was Thursday noon or Thursday night. Nothing is mentioned about the lamb being sacrificed in the meal itself. It talks about the cup and so forth, and dipping the whatever into the oil and so forth. There's nothing about the Passover lamb per se. But at the same time, preparations were made. Normally that took place between 2 and 5 in the afternoon preceding Passover. They would go and cure a lamb. And everything else they needed with it. And then they would meet and it would start after 5 o'clock. What time did the Jewish day end?
Sunset.
Sunset to sunset.
Maybe they had a hard time getting a lamb after Jesus overturned, everything going on.
Yeah, well, that might be a
There was a lot
problem.
of scalping going on.
At any rate, so he says to Peter and John, I wonder why he picked Peter and John to run this errand. But he did.
Peter was a little more aggressive and move things along.
John was a big guy.
No, James is probably the thing.
Oh,
But Peter, John, and James were kind of the three closest to James, so maybe James was thinking doing something else.
So whether it was a sort of an object lesson that he wanted to them see, because once before he had asked them to make preparations just a couple of days before. Remember what that was? What happened then? Just before this, a couple of days earlier, as they came to Jerusalem, he asked them to prepare something in town. Remember what that was? The donkey. Yeah. And was that sort of an unusual arrangement? Remember?
The donkey was waiting there next to 10 minutes.
Yeah. So it gave instructions as to go and find. So here's a repetition of that same thing. Just do what I say. Go in there. It's going to work out.
Peter and John are also the only two that actually are witnesses for the crucifixion are actually there.
Yeah. That's
The
good.
whole thing has a sense of being highly orchestrated.
Yeah.
It's all planned according to what our Lord
Yeah.
is dictating.
That's true. So you get the feel. Who's in charge of history?
There's a cute cartoon that Tyler did. Instead of the Last Supper, it was the Lost Breakfast with a dog running away with the scraps on the table.
Was John a relative of Peter? Sorry, of Jesus?
No.
No.
What made you ask that?
Because I got the impression from reading that thing through that there were, I guess the word might be allusions to Jesus had some natural siblings.
You did.
Yeah.
And two of them wrote epistles in the New Testament that we have in the New Testament.
I thought John being a member of, well, not being a member of the but a John who was a sibling was at the crucifixion. And I was just wondering if perhaps he'd also been in the group of disciples.
James and Judas were two of Jesus' natural siblings. And later they came to faith after the resurrection. And it became, James especially became the leader of the church in Jerusalem. And his book, James, was penned by him. And then Judas, a very any rate, but John was not a blood relative. And that he had a brother, James and John. They were brothers and fishermen.
Sons of Zebedee.
Sons of Zebedee. So anyways, they said, well, fine, we'll go take care of it. It seemed rather last minute. I mean, this is before 2 o'clock in that day. And so where did we get this? The problem wasn't getting a lamb, sacrificed lamb, a prepared lamb, or all the other parts of the meal. Because there were plenty of vendors, I'm sure, at sale prices. But the problem was a place, a venue, that would house 13, Jesus and his 12 disciples. And I don't know if anybody else joined, but we know that at least it was 12 of them. So they needed a substantial room, a facility.
Would the women have been there?
There's no mention of it at this point. Someone for their help in serving, you just don't know. But Mary Magdalene wasn't sitting at the table. So at any rate,
She was on the position.
Dan Brown, yeah, oh boy. So anyway, what is unusual about when they go in, John and Peter, to locate the place? Anything unusual as you read this? How in the world do they know where to find the house?
Oh, the man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him to the house at the entrance. But I'm sure that was more than one guy carrying a jar of water.
No, there were a lot of women carrying jars of water.
Typically, women carried jars.
Okay.
Occasionally, there would be a male servant who would do it. Typically, it was women, so that sort of narrowed the field. But it's interesting because if you look over and compare it with Matthew in 26:18, and it says, and you will find that it says a certain man, which hints that perhaps Jesus had already made arrangements with someone. So it wasn't random. And who this person was, maybe he was the guy who had the donkey before him. But at any rate, this is a certain man. The point is that Jesus, as John said, orchestrated this event. So they went and they found it. And I love the way it closes. They left and found things just as Jesus had told them. I find it's very reassuring when you look at his promises and life as it unfolds, just as he foretold it. Any questions? I mean, I think David is in, do you know how many locations there are for this Last Supper? I've been in one of them, but are there others that also?
I think there's actually 2 that I know of. One is probably the one that you were in, which is, I forget what period it was built, but that's the one above David's tomb. And then there's another one a little more in the old city, which is, I think it's the house of someone's mother.
I thought the one above was possibly Mark's family.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's like this,
later,
yeah.
Obviously, after all the
Yeah.
discussion of the city and time went on, so who knows exactly what it was. Doesn't matter. They knew where they were. And so they come together. And so it says they prepared the Passover. So they is, we don't know, could have been others besides the 12 disciples. Women helping in all of it, we just don't know. And that's not important. And then it says, and when the hour came, what hour might have that been?
The time Jesus was talking about, my time has not come yet, the hour has not arrived.
Yeah, it has that symbol, but it could have been just the start of the Passover day.
That's all.
After sunset, and then the beginning of the Passover day. And then he said to them, and it says the apostles reclined at table. What does that imply? nap before supper?
No, that's how they ate. Probably on the floor.
And did they recline to the left or to the right? This is really important.
Depends on the floor.
I think most would eat with the right hand, right? Not with the same hand, is that correct?
Yes.
So they would lean to their left. And what seems to be the case from several gospel readings about Judas, Judas was sitting on one side, John the other. The man who was the betrayer was sitting right back between them. And so it says, when they reclined, and they said to them, I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I die. There's a beautiful expression of this in the Gospel of John, but what does this say to you? Think of the emotions here and the feelings that are going on.
Since he was eager, and yet he's about to face the horrible death, torture and death.
What does it say about his desire to have fellowship with us? Do you think he's eager to have supper with you?
He's probably looking for emotional support when you consider when he's on the cross. And Father, why have you forsaken me?
Yeah, exactly. So he's desperate for emotional connection, support from his friends, which he called them. They're no longer calling them servants, but friends, he says in John. But I find this amazing. He really wanted to be with these guys one last time. Of course, he was with them later, obviously, after the resurrection, but this was different. And then he makes a statement. What do you think this means? For I tell you, I will not eat it again until it finds fulfillment in the kingdom of God.
Well, then they're all with him in heaven, and he'll get to eat a meal with them again. Yeah. Is that?
Heaven is God's realm. If we, it was in the daily office this week twice about heaven is God's realm, that what he's going to do is break bread with us in the new heaven and the new earth when he comes down to be with us, not when we go up into the clouds somewhere to be with him. I think the wonderful irony in this whole thing is that he is the lamb to be sacrificed.
Yes.
And the heck with all the other lambs. They may taste good with a mustard and everything on the outside to make it nice and crusty, but he is the Passover lamb.
Just a question. The tradition there, correct me if I'm wrong, is they leave a cup for Elijah as no drinker. And that's when they waiting for the coming back of Elijah's supposed to be part of some in a Passover table. Is that correct? So there's an empty cup left at every Passover table.
It's like it's symbolic in a sense, I think.
Yeah.
You say it's like the garment left in the tomb.
I think we don't know if that was part of the tradition.
Oh, not
then,
that, but I'm just saying.
or if it's more contemporary, or the post-Christian day. I mean, not post-Christian, post-resurrection. It's become part of Jewish Passover ritual. I don't know, but we know there were 4 cups that were used as a part of the meal. And so he says, I will not eat it meaning this meal together with them. And then ultimately there will be the great feast, the great celebration in the restored heaven and earth that promised to us, and to which everyone are being called to now. And it says in verse 17, and taking the cup, he gave thanks. You understand pretty much the whole Passover ritual. Why would he give thanks at this point?
Well, there's a prayer they say before, that's what I'm just saying, it's not mentioned here, but blessing my Lord, Rogatorial, the whole thing about blessing the food, and then please get the fruit of the vine, then they That's not mentioned here.
It was just sort of like when we get there, we get placed when we're about to start. It was typical for the elder man, the father, to offer that prayer.
This must be something else. It's not the traditional blessing of the wine.
Yeah.
We took it a few steps further in front of him. Sat up next to him.
So when it says, take this and divide it among you, what does that indicate? Apparently, there's just one cup that passed around, we didn't have individual cups. But anyway, it was this, both, I will not eat it, and he said, I will not drink it until the kingdom of God comes. So in his mind, what does he see in the future?
Restoration.
Of God's kingdom, they all still thought we're hanging on that it was coming out.
Yes.
It's here. Come on, let's get on with it. Stubborn, they just could not get that out of their heads. Of course, I understand they had several thousand years of preconditioning to think, Messiah brings in a kingdom by force. And then he makes these incredible statements in verse 19. Someone read that verse again.
And he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me.
What does that mean? What does it mean to you?
Symbolism. Form of symbolism. This is my body. And bread is my body. But to eat it is probably a different concept. Some people say, I'm going to eat the body and drink the blood. It's, the other side.
Sadly, there's been wars fought over the interpretation. The verse that was designed to bring people together has been so divisive. As you all know, there's essentially three major interpretations of what's happening. And let's start with the Roman Catholic version. How do they see the Last Supper, this wine in the body? How do they see
With the body and blood, the wine and the blood and the communion wafer and the body, that's really what they are. In the Roman Catholic tradition.
They see them, this is called transubstantiation. That is, these actually become the physical body and blood of Jesus. And also, it's the representation of this. In other words, a reenactment of Jesus. Every time they say Mass and go through this, they are reenacting Christ's death. How do the Lutherans?
Consubstantiation, or spiritually the body and blood.
They don't feel it's actually changed into the body of Christ, but spiritually is in with under. We're the Anglicans, or Episcopalians. Well, the third general view is that it's all representation. It's a memorial. But these are symbols of his death and birth. But there's nothing magical about the elements themselves. It's what they represent. So we're us Episcopalians. Come on, you lifelong.
The real presence. That Jesus is truly present, but it is not a literal, but you're not being cannibal when you do it. But he is present in the sacrifice. He has the power of giving you life. That's why he says, do this. He doesn't say, if you like it, do it. But
Sounds like it's closer to the Lutheran, like it is spiritually.
in some ways, yeah.
Before I became involved with the liturgical church, I only saw it as a memorial, and it's fine. I mean, but I've come to appreciate the sense that he really is there in this act, in that special way. And what exactly that means, I don't know. I don't necessarily get a tingle with my spine or, but somehow when I come to this holy moment, there's a connection, divine connection in a way, and it becomes very meaningful to me. I love being able to celebrate once a week, whereas in my early days in Baptist circles and all the rest, sometimes it was once a quarter, sometimes it was once a month, in some places it's once or twice a year.
I think you're making a good point, Dan, and the whole thing transpires when the priest invokes the Spirit and blesses the bread and then the wine, the invocation. Do this in remembrance of me. But if you notice, Nate and I've been through it so many times, I don't pay much attention to what somebody's doing with their hands. It's not hocus pocus dominocus. But something mystical transpires in the Spirit who becomes the agent in the real presence that brings it about. That's why you elevate the cup and elevate the bread after you made the sign of the cross over. When the priest does it, bingo, or makes the sign with his hand, lifts the bread. I know.
Yeah, that's helpful. I did. Is it time to go? I think that's helpful because I didn't quite understand the hand gestures and lifting the cross and so forth. I thought, what is actually is something being transferred here? Is something symbolically happening, or is there something effectual?
And that's where the Episcopal Church gets into a lot of difficulty in the Anglican Church. Is it high church or low church? Low church says it doesn't really take the real presence. It may be in the canons, but that's why you don't have communion in some Anglican churches every Sunday.
Right, once a month.
Yeah, once a month, second and fourth. But it becomes a morning prayer, evening prayer focus.
Now, is it true that only a priest, every priest would be the high priest at that moment? That does the blessing.
You're not in the place of Jesus, but you're reenacting what Jesus
But
did.
you have the authority to do that.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. The lay people couldn't do that.
No, would not carry any weight at all.
The lay people can serve elements in the blessed already, which have been put on reserve, which is what happens sometimes in some services where there is not a priest
Right.
available.
Well, I have led in the Lord's Supper many times in Japan and Singapore and other parts of the world with various churches that doesn't feel the need for a priest to be the person. But what he cares about is our hearts, and that we're there and we're remembered. And I like the idea, as John pointed out, that it's a holy moment. It's something out of the ordinary, something sensitive. And that's why Paul gives a warning. And so I remember to the Corinthians, some time ago, and he says, be careful and look, examine your own hearts before you come and partake. And I don't know if we don't verbally say that in our service during the religion for people say, take a moment and examine your hearts to see if
That's where in Rite 1, the prayer humble access becomes so
is that what
important.
it is?
We do not presume to come to this thy table, O merciful Lord, but trusting in his righteousness. We're not worthy in ourselves. We are worthy in him as he is imputed into this whole sacrament.
That's good. Like we're here tonight.
I found a little bit about the cups.
Yeah.
And apparently, this is a footnote to Matthew 26, verse 27. In 27 says, he took a cup, and we give thanks, gave it to him, saying, drink it all again. But the The footnote says, most likely the third of four cups of Passover, the cup of blessing or the cup of redemption, corresponding to God's third promise ring, has to be Exodus 6:6. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm with great acts of judgment. But to comment on, you're right, there apparently were four cups.
Yeah, and this was probably the fourth cup. There were four cups in the Passover set. The representing first one was sanctification, then judgment, and then redemption and praise. I think of the sanctification as being set apart, as God called his people out of Egypt. He set them apart for his special purpose. And then judgment, what came down on the Egyptians, and then redemption, and then the celebration afterwards.
Thank you.
I don't know if I've got that all correct. Does anybody have more about what the Passover Center, those four cups represent?
Is there any truth to the word Holy Grail? Wasn't that the cup of Jesus? I mean, or is that just
I think you've been watching Indiana Jones.
Well, I don't know. It's in Glastonbury.
No, I don't. That's been around for years. I know that. No, I think the cup he used was an ordinary clay.
Yeah, but I mean, with the reference to that word.
And I
No.
can't imagine.
Is it a real thing?
Nobody would have thought of it. They did the dishes and that was it. And then as time went on, the city was destroyed and who knows.
Must have been real Monty Python.
I don't know.
No, look up any stories you can find on Joseph Arimathea.
Yeah. I know. There's a lot of legends that have come out, and the road and so forth.
There's a wonderful novel by Charles Williams called War in Heaven. And it's discovered that the Grail, and Williams has a wonderful, it spells it Graal, shows up in a small English country church. And the vicar of the church is not upset when it's stolen, because it is only made holy by those who use it. It has power, but it cannot be used wrongly, because you call destruction upon yourself in seeking to possess it. But Indiana Jones gets a lot of things wrong, but he also gets a lot of things right. Remember, there's a part in the Last Crusade where Sean Connery, his father, at the end says, "Let it go, Indiana. Don't seek to possess it, because you aren't fit for that. You're not consecrated. You're not the priest." You see it in the Ark of the Covenant,
One of those Indiana Jones.
yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
But there is unspeakable power, and we poo-poo that. It's just all superstition. That's why Paul warns us about principalities and powers, not because he was a dummy who didn't know anything, but because he's aware of exactly what's going on behind everything else.
And the sad part is over the years, the search for relics. Peter's ear or thumb or parts of the body or teeth or bones and whatever were sought and fought over and purchased real prices just to have something that they thought had powers to bless and so forth. And
What about the shroud?
yeah. It's interesting stories about it. It's been more recent.
Yeah, the new discoveries.
New discoveries.
When it's validity.
It seems like a photograph. It would be kind of neat that God took a picture of the sun.
So anyway, let's move on. In verse 20, would someone read 20 to 23?
And likewise, the cup after they had eaten, saying, "This cup that is poured out for you is a new covenant in my blood."
3:23.
I'm sorry. But behold, the hand of him who betrays me is with me at the table. For the Son of Man goes as it has been determined. But woe to that man of whom he is betrayed. He is betrayed. And they began to question one another. which of them it could have been that is going to do this?
So he talks about the cup. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. What does that refer to? What's the new covenant?
New Testament,
Okay.
and the contract.
Well, now he becomes a sacrificial lamb. So in the past where they sacrificed animals, he's the one sacrifice. And it's his blood shed, which is poured out for you.
When the word covenant is used, what's layman's term for a covenant? It's an agreement, isn't it? And one of my former pastors, he said he called it God's new arrangement for living. And in other words, it's a new understanding, it's a new arrangement to approach him and the terms by which we can have fellowship and enter into a relationship with him. A new arrangement, a new covenant, a new agreement. And the old one, this is written about Jeremiah prophesied this in chapter 31. Look at that. If you look, Jeremiah 31, 31 to 34. Jeremiah, the long prophets. Jeremiah 31, 31. And this is picked up by other
31, 34?
30, yeah, verses 31 to 34, chapter 31.
Jeremiah 31.
31, 30 or 31?
31,
31.
31 to 34.
The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and the people of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they broke my covenant, though I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. This is the covenant I will make with the people of Israel, and after that time, declares the Lord, I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will they teach their neighbor to say to one another, know the Lord, because they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more.
What was the old covenant?
Mosaic law. Mosaic law.
I can hear you.
Mosaic law.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
It was an arrangement of sacrifices and commitment to keep his laws and so forth on the surface. But it still required faith on the part of every individual Israelite. In other words, they had to believe in the God of this arrangement. And in living, that their faith would enable them to live out the life, the rules and regulations. But in the new covenant, how is it different?
The final sacrifice was made from Jesus, that sins were forgiven once and for all, and through Jesus, we obtain
So, it's admitting that we have sinned, and that we are wanting to live differently. And that's done by a lot of people would like forgiveness, but they don't like the conditions that come after that. But if we've sinned against God, desire to change and seek forgiveness and accept what He promises and offers, yeah, it's prudent that we have this forgiveness and we're reconciled to God. So it's a free gift. It does have conditions. It's unconditioned, but it's not unconditional. He expects a response, and we accept Him as Lord and Savior, and we commit ourselves to following Him as disciples. So,
There's a, and if I can just add something, there's a distinction with two types of covenant. One is a parity covenant, which is agreement between equals. We make an agreement with Russia, let's say, okay? And we pledge to agree to the terms of the agreement. Given our human nature, that gets broken all the time, to the point one of us declares that the other is untrustworthy. The other covenant is a suzerain, a sovereign agreement between the Lord and his people that never gets broken. Jesus, God, whatever you want, however you want to express it, never looks back from the agreement he made with Israel. Salvation is from the Jews and for everyone else if they choose to accept the offer. And that's the whole the idea of grace. That is, it's offered not exclusively, but inclusively from the Lord's side. The only verse I remember out of all of Jeremiah, I think it's in chapter 31. I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore I have continued my faithfulness to you. And it continues to this day.
Comforting.
Beg pardon?
Very comforting.
Yes. Yeah. It's not withdrawn. As Nate says every Sunday, he loves us. He may not like what we do. It's not I approve of your theft, your lying, or anything else. But his love is not withdrawn. It's disciplined like a parent. Imagine what your children would turn into if you never said no to them. You can't stick your finger in the electrical outlet or whatever else you were told not to do at one
My
point.
my youngest daughter one time put, the pumpkin carving knives as a plastic handle, but it's metal. She decided to put it in there and see if it fit.
how did that go?
Not too good, but that explains a lot of things with her, I guess. I'm just kidding.
But notice here it says this covenant is the new arrangement, the new contract, the new agreement between God and us. And it's made possible, he says, how?
In my blood, which is poured out for you.
That's how it happened. Symbolic, obviously, that's what happened in the first Passover. This which is poured out for you. How to put a graphic picture of his blood being shed, as we know from the cross. So, and then he makes this statement, verse 22.
I was kind of find it odd that it's in this particular place. In 1 second, he's like telling him about the new covenant, and the next thing he's gonna go to the betrayer.
It's a costly covenant. Costly his life. And when I was baptized, along with my family, beginning my senior year of university, and we were each asked to sort of pick a verse, sort of a life verse. Before we were done, we were gave a brief testimony, and then we were asked to quote our life verse for that moment. Anyway. And don't ask me how I got there, but I landed on Galatians 2:20, which says, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." It's just I like that one too. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ lives in me. In the life which I now live, I live by faith in the Son of God, who gave his life, who loved me and gave his life for me. And that sense of what a covenant. Exchange lives. His life for my life.
Foster, in the book you're reading and study on, is very adamant about that cost of discipleship. Once you've undertaken the offer to live by God's grace, and cost him his life. Otherwise, it would have been cheap grace rather than costly grace.
So then this enigmatic statement, verse 22. Someone read that?
Son of Man will go as it has been decreed, but woe to that man who betrays him.
Was Jesus a victim of hatred and politics?
Yes.
Yes. But was he, would have things turned out otherwise if it hadn't been here?
No.
No. This was part of a plan, a long-standing plan in the beginning of time, before, in past eternity. The Holy Trinity looked ahead, and with the creation of man, and with all that would unfold in his fall, there looked to a time when it would, in order to save mankind, it would mean the sending of his Son, and eventually his death.
How many years do you think goes between, maybe between Adam and Jesus?
In the Lord's time or our?
Well, it gets complicated. If you try and do the math in terms of generations and going through,
Right.
you don't come up with enough that geology and other things seem to indicate. So,
Yeah, there wasn't an Episcopal priest way back in the 1600s who ran all the calculations, took him years. Then he had whatever number of years it was, 3,000, 4,000.
about 5,000 years.
Well, I prefer that over to the planet's a million years old. It could be a million years old, but
It's only a day.
it's only a day.
So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me read a comment of Tom Wright's on this whole thing. When Jesus is preparing the Passover for his own death. His own death will enable his people to escape. Escape from what? From the powers of evil. A little later, Jesus spoke of the dark powers having their moment of glory. We still don't understand the nature and power of evil much better than people did in Jesus' day. But if we believe that in any sense God's plan of salvation for the world was reaching its climax in Jesus, it isn't surprising that the forces of evil were doing their best to thwart it. And we think we know better, call it psychology or whatever else it is. There are no dark powers. And I think that, which is why I think intuitively I never like watching horror shows.
In the movie The Passion of Christ, I love the scene. It was very meaningful. That Satan kind of was always bobbing in the background.
An androgynous being at that, yes.
And that's so true.
I highly recommend anybody who wants to undertake it. A couple of you have read it. I know that Jeff has. Father Elijah, Apocalypse, has a passage about an apostate priest orchestrating the downfall of the church. And one of the central characters, a Jew who became a Christian and eventually a priest, sees the dark powers passing behind the priest, who thinks he's in control of anything. And the failure to recognize that surrendering that way, we become pawns to those powers as we embrace them.
That's why I started back in verse 3 of the same chapter where it says, then Satan entered Judas. So here's the 12 disciples, but there's a third party, if I can put it that way, a third person who's part of this scene and seeking to influence Judas to, and we'll look at, was he demonically possessed? Was he had no control? Was he simply a pawn at that point? Or was Satan just coaching and encouraging to do what he was committed to do anyway? But at the same time, we also have, Jesus called him not only, one of his disciples, but he also called him the son of destruction. And he knew what he was going to bring about. It's hard for us to get our minds around this. But notice this. He tells them one of them is going to betray them. So in verse 23, what was the result when you read the statement?
They began to say among themselves which one of them it might be.
And then in the next verse, what were they talking about?
Which of them considered to be the greatest?
Can you imagine?
Like, oh, okay.
We're jockeying for position, but
And this is sort of, on ESPN, the guys in sports, they go from one thing and make actors, they just flip from one goofy topic to another. I don't watch it, but they do. But it's like, where are these guys at their heads, And the way he puts it, he says, but the hand of him who is going to betray me is with mine on the table. And you get the picture that they were sharing a common plate, the bowl. And so they were both dipping into the same bowl of whatever, with the matzah bread, and the unleavened bread. And they were that intimate. He's right next to him. Yeah. And yet they argue. I mean, he in another one of the Gospels, he mentions that he points, he tells Peter, it's this guy. Or is it John?
John.
Peter, huh?
I think it's John.
John. But they really didn't pick up on it, And then they how much time went by, we don't know. This is sort of squished into a few paragraphs, so whether it took hours, minutes, we don't know in between these things. But the next thing they're arguing about is who's going to be number one. So, a dispute also arose among them, to which of them was considered to be greatest. How did Jesus here describe? Okay, we'll pick it up. The writing is done. We're going to pick up from verse 24, okay? But we want to talk a lot more about, actually I'm going to start again at 22, because I want to talk a lot more about Jesus.
the sad epitaph of this is that they still don't have a clue what he's saying. That's what got me. It's over their heads, the way he's talking.
It's hard to believe.
They're probably thinking the blood his blood to be shed is going to be like in a battle or something.
Yeah.
Could be. No. Who knows? Anyway, is there anything you want to share for prayer or report on?